Unlock your digital dreams. This is New Deep Dive.
Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. So today we're blasting off, you could say, into the really high-stakes race for space and global connectivity. Just imagine a world where, well, everything, your internet, how you communicate, maybe even national security depends on these constellations of satellites whizzing above us. Now, picture a major player, Europe, making this really ambitious push for its own independence, its own sovereignty in this super connected universe. We're talking about Europe's quest for satellite sovereignty. And yeah, it's a pretty direct challenge to the big names already out there, like Starlink. So our mission today, we're going to dig into a whole pile of sources, articles, research, our notes, all looking at the huge investments, the strategic mergers, and these brand new projects Europe's launching. We really want you to walk away from this deep dive feeling like you've quickly got the key info on this, well, pretty critical tech and geopolitical contest. So the big question is why? Why is Europe pouring billions into its own satellite stuff? Why now? What's really driving this massive effort? Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, what's really fascinating, I think, is that this whole drive for satellite sovereignty in Europe, it isn't just about, providing more internet access. Fundamentally, it's about technological independence and geopolitical resilience. If you think back a bit, the situation in Ukraine, their reliance on Starlink for really critical communications during the conflict, that was a huge wake-up call. It really starkly highlighted the vulnerabilities, didn't it, depending on external, often commercial providers. And look, this isn't just about military strength, it's economic stability too. Imagine a critical supply chain getting disrupted because, I don't know, a single commercial provider has an outage or maybe faces political pressure. So Europe's move here, it's not just military strategy, it feels much more like an industrial policy decision, really designed to secure its foundational digital economy.
Yeah, that Ukraine example is pretty stark, isn't it? A really clear vulnerability. But hang on, building your own infrastructure, sovereign infrastructure, doesn't that cost a whole lot more? I mean, compared to just using the commercial networks already up there. How does Europe square that circle?
It's definitely a strategic calculation. I think the perceived cost of dependence in the long run is seen as outweighing the upfront investment. And Europe's strategy, well, it's kind of a two-pronged approach, really. The first part involves this pretty significant strategic merger. It's created a new powerhouse, actually, in the commercial space. You've got the UK and France, for example. They came together, invested combined over, what, €1.5 billion into Eutelsat, all aimed at boosting European satellite internet capabilities and, crucially, reducing that reliance on systems like, Elon Musk's Starlink.
Wow, okay, over €1.5 billion. That's a serious chunk of change. What exactly came out of that investment?
Well, that capital basically paved the way for the merger of Eutelsat and OneWeb. That was finalized back in September 2023. And the value, we're talking billions of dollars here, just to give you a sense of scale. These are massive multi-billion euro bets. They're really trying to reshape Europe's place in space. And this wasn't just like a simple buyout. It actually created the world's first combined GEO-LEO satellite operator. So Eutelsat brings its, 36 geostationary satellites. Those are great for broad, stable coverage, right? And then OneWeb contributes its low Earth orbit constellation, which is 648 satellites. Much closer to Earth, lower latency.
Huh. Okay, GEO and LEO combined, that sounds incredibly powerful, on paper. But are there big technical challenges or operational ones? I mean, truly knitting together a geostationary network and a low Earth orbit one, it sounds like mixing oil and water almost.
Yeah, that's a really sharp point. It absolutely requires sophisticated network management, complex ground infrastructure. It's not easy. But that synergy, a combination, that's precisely what they're betting on. The combined company, it's now operating as the Eutelsat Group, with OneWeb as a subsidiary, and they're forecasting pretty big benefits from putting these together. They're expecting double-digit growth in revenue and EBITDA by 2027. More specifically, they think they can get around 150 million euros in annual revenue synergies, extra income within 4 years just from these premium hybrid services, plus over 80 million euros a year in cost savings. So strategically, this positions them much, much better to compete against SpaceX's Starlink. They're targeting key markets like fixed connectivity, government services, and also mobile connectivity for ships and planes. And the fact that OneWeb's operations hub is in London, complementing Eutelsat's HQ in Paris, that really cements this sort of pan-European leader in space communication.
Okay, so that's one major pillar, this Eutelsat-OneWeb powerhouse. The other one, and maybe this is even more ambitious, is the IRIS program, spelled IRIS². What's the big goal with this massive $2 billion project?
Right, IRIS². So this aims to build a completely new multi-orbital constellation. We're talking 290 satellites, and the goal is to provide secure connectivity for both government and civilian users. This project directly tackles those growing concerns about Europe's technological independence we talked about. The objective is clear: develop resilient, sovereign capabilities for Earth observation, secure satcoms, precise navigation, the whole package. And the consortium behind it, SpaceRise, it brings together the established industry giants, the big aerospace companies, but also these new space innovators. That's a really key distinction, I think. New space companies, they often work differently, right? Leaner structures, faster prototyping, a more agile approach compared to the traditional players. They bring a fresh perspective.
Uh-huh. So beyond just the commercial side of things, what other sort of core jobs does a project like IRIS² have, especially thinking about national security?
Yeah, that brings up a really crucial point. When we talk about satellite sovereignty, it's actually more than just owning the satellites flying overhead. It means having complete control over the infrastructure, the data, the services, making sure no outside entity can dictate access or, censor information or disrupt critical operations. An IRS system specifically is designed to be, well, tough, resilient against nuclear effects and disruptions. That means it's engineered to keep working even in scenarios involving things like electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, or radiation bursts. These are characteristics that commercial services like Starlink, they're just not built for. And they're absolutely vital for military and critical government uses. This public-private partnership model they're using, it's meant to sort of optimize costs while making sure they develop innovative solutions. All supporting Europe's digital sovereignty and cutting reliance on outside providers, it really is about foundational infrastructure at the end of the day.
That definitely draws a clear line between, say, convenience and real strategic necessity. But a project this big, this complex, also runs into hurdles, right? And IRIS has definitely seen some, well, pretty significant schedule shifts. That's a big setback, isn't it? It almost feels like Europe's trying to run a sprint, but starting like miles behind the others.
Indeed. Yeah, that's fair. While the original plan was for deployment to start late 2024, with full services by 2027. The project has hit substantial delays, no question. The current plans, as they stand now, foresee a more phased deployment. So the design phase runs 2024-2025, then a critical design review in 2028, first satellite launches hopefully in 2029, and then full operational capability targeted for 2030. Government services. They're now expected to start in 2030. That's several years later than they first hoped.
Right. And that puts Europe in a bit of a tricky spot, doesn't it, as a lead player in this market that's just exploding. I mean, by the time IRS is fully up and running, say around 2030, 2031, competitors like SpaceX's Starlink could have, over 10,000 satellites up there? And China's Guang constellation, they're planning something like 13,000 satellites. So what does that delay really mean for Europe's strategic goals, even with those unique advantages you mentioned, like nuclear resilience?
That's the vital question, isn't it, about market entry timing. Look, being a late player, it sounds like a clear disadvantage, and in some ways it is. But you could argue it also lets Europe learn from the early birds' mistakes, maybe. Avoid their pitfalls, design for the next generation of threats, perhaps, and maybe integrate newer, more efficient technologies right from the start instead of having to, bolt them on later. So despite entering later, IRIS does have some unique strengths that secured pretty favorable frequency rights, partly because of its links with existing networks like OneWeb and O3b mPOWER that gives it priority access in certain bands. And its final architecture is quite complex. 264 satellites in low Earth orbit, LEO, at about 1,200 kilometers. Then 18 satellites in medium Earth orbit, MEO, higher up at 8,000 kilometers, plus an additional experimental layer, over 10 satellites in even lower LEOs, maybe between 400 and 750 kilometers. This whole multi-orbital approach, that's really key to its planned resilience and versatility.
Okay, so just to quickly recap then, Europe's big satellite sovereignty strategy seems to rest on two main pillars. First, that strategic merger of Eutelsat and OneWeb, creating this powerful commercial entity that also has military potential, like a hybrid. And second, the very ambitious, though delayed, IRIS constellation project. Both are really designed to give Europe secure, resilient communications and, maybe most importantly, cut down its reliance on providers from elsewhere.
Exactly. And for you listening, the core reasons behind all this European effort are pretty clear now, I hope. It's technological independence, first off, geopolitical worries, and Ukraine's experience with Starlink was definitely a key push for IRIS urgency. And just the fundamental strategic importance of having reliable, resilient communication for everyone, citizens, governments, the military. Like we said, it's really about more than just getting faster internet. It's foundational infrastructure, it's national security, digital autonomy in a world that's increasingly connected, but also potentially pretty volatile.
So here's something to chew on, maybe. Given those significant delays for IRIS, right, and the absolutely breakneck expansion of competitors, Starlink aiming for over 10,000 satellites by 2030-ish, China's Guang with 13,000 planned, what does it actually mean for Europe to be a late player in this incredibly high-stakes game, even with unique advantages like secured frequencies and that nuclear resilience factor? What will really define success for Europe in this quest for digital sovereignty when the race is already going full tilt, but the finish line, well, it seems to keep moving further away? Definitely something to think about. We encourage you to keep exploring the really profound implications of this global space race. Until next time.